Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm dear darling. I shall we see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhallow today in a rather late night episode recording because today we had our first D&D session back. This is with a group 1. It's good to be back. I would say mostly recovered from COVID, which is good. Like, I don't have a sore throat or something, but I was finding that, I don't know if it's because I'm out of practice or doing D&D or whatever, but I was like speaking for not quite 3 hours continuously. I was like speaking this much. I was like, it's too much. So I was like, I gave myself a break, and I also didn't put on any of the crazy voices, I suppose. But good evening, everyone. Right now in Fawnhallow, it's 11:39 p.m. on Wednesday, September 11th, 2024. I mostly just kept just doing like pitch variation. I was mostly not trying to do accents or trying to do any sort of like different tones in the voices. Luckily, the NPC who has a really sort of like raspy voice, who kind of sounds like a Cockney version of what's his name, Ethan in the Okami series. If you watch that, is no longer is in the campaign, but is no longer at the location of the campaign, so didn't have to do his voice too much. Although he is like one of my favorite characters. But yeah, it's back. It was an absolutely wild restart of D&D, which I can only describe as basically the encounter is not combat, the encounter was not social, the encounter was bureaucracy, and honestly was not meant to be as much of an encounter as it was. The long and short of it is they basically ran into like a big bureaucratic process, and I did definitely like plan out parts of it, and part of me was like, they might end up somehow making this like the entire session, but provided that they don't, they could probably get it done within like 10-15 minutes of a session. I think it ended up taking like an hour and 40 minutes or something. It was really quite a long time. I was just like, okay, you know, that's part of the joy, that's part of the fun, is just seeing how long silly things like this end up taking. So that's what you live in fantasy for, is a roleplay bureaucracy. But yeah, I suppose we'll talk about whatever came next in the holiday. What did I talk about last time? Acrylic paints, right? I think that was yesterday's one. We're getting not quite to the end of the holiday, but we're getting there, you know. Things are getting done. We're making our way slowly through the conversation topics, because I had to go quite low down to actually see what the new conversation topic is. What was it? Where is this? Oh yeah, at the same time that we did some painting, some other people went to go visit a dam and get a tour of a dam, which seemed like pretty cool. Oh, this is a good one. I suppose talking about D&D, we can talk a little bit about Honey Heist. So during the holiday, D&D has been going on for a while, and you know, some people have like expressed an interest in. Oh, I just knocked over my controller and opened Task Manager. I also closed my tab. Expressed an interest on maybe like running your own sessions or something. I'm not sure if anyone's going to run their own campaign. That's probably a bit much to be both in a campaign and also run one, but I don't know if that happens, and we'll certainly see. But there's certainly been at least I've pitched it multiple times, being like, oh yeah, especially when times I'm off or cannot run a session, feel free to, you know, talk to me beforehand, and we can get you to like run like a one shot or something. Anyway, so it's been a long time coming for someone else to run a session for something, and for me to actually play as a player, because I've not played as a player since university time. Well, no, a bit after university time actually, in like an online campaign with some friends, but then that sort of like fell through, ran out of time for it. But like the longest I played was in a D&D campaign during university, or actually I was in 2, but none of them got very far. One of them got to level 6, which is what the current campaign's at, and one of them got to level 3. But while on holiday in one of the evenings, we decided to do a one-shot of Honey Heist, which, if you don't know, is a different system. It's a very, very simple tabletop role-playing system where effectively you it's so easy just to pick up. Most of it, I would say, I don't really know from a DM perspective or a BM perspective, a Bear Master, I believe it's called. seems to be sort of like more rooted in improv, to be honest, because it's not really any hard and fast rules or systems. The only system is, oh, does it feel like is it uncertain whether it's going to succeed or not? Okay, roll a dice. That's basically it. But it's designed to be simple. It uses, I think the system is just called Honey Heist itself, but the general premise is the players are all different bears, literal bears in a real human world, and they are attempting to try and get some honey from honeycon. And that's basically it. That's the entire premise. They have like random ways to sort of generate your character by rolling the dice. And what we did is the friend printed out one of each type of bear and a spare one in case someone wanted to play like a duplicate type of bear, but we were like, no, there's 5 of us, there's 5 different types of bears, let's get one of each bear up in here just for fun. So we did that, and then what you do is once you get your bear, I think you roll for your like attribute or like your descriptor, and you roll for the role you will play in this crime heist. But I should have mentioned that. Basically, the whole of Honey Heist is like a parody of a crime heist sort of movies, like the Ocean 11, etc., etc. But it takes a very sort of light-hearted comedic tone. Everything is very unserious because, I mean, you're playing a literal bear. Not a bear who, like, exists in a fantasy world. You're a bear literally in the human world. You do bear things, like you can't speak the human language. You can only speak to each other in bear language. And it's all about, like, doing stupid stuff, silly things, improv, like, do the silliest thing imaginable. And just like... The only mechanical thing I can think of is just like in a crime heist, what you can do is you can flash back to previous things. Like, oh, you run into a problem and you'd be like, oh, see, this is where I set it up. 2 weeks earlier, I did X, Y, Z, and that can resolve the issue. Or you can try and resolve the issue that way. So it's all about basically sort of doing like these silly things, like you're just rolling with the punches, and then if you come up to a problem, you do a flashback essentially to try and like crime heist your way in. But mechanically, when you're building your character, you roll for the species, and as I said, we did like a pseudo random where we just made sure that everyone got one of each distribution. We did a pseudo, I'm not sure we did a pseudo distribution for the adjectives you can have. I think maybe we did. We might have done it as like a pseudo random, so everyone got a different descriptor. I'm looking and just trying to see it. It does look like it. And then you roll for the role you play in the heist, like are you the hacker, are you the face, are you the wheels on the ground, etc., etc. And then the last things you do is you roll for like the outfit you're wearing. And depending on what you roll for the outfit is depending basically how well you can pass as a human rather than a bear. So who do we have? We had an unhinged panda hacker, otherwise known as Party Pete, as a friend's one. He was just he was Party Pete. He was just the weird guy. What's this? Weird guy on streets is my friend's descriptor of it. My perspective, at least from the character, is like he was just like and this guy's here. You know, he was more like a puncher. I guess I should have started up front. We started off with, who is it? The honey badger, the Don, the retired mafioso Donatello, who, yeah, the role was mafioso, I think, or maybe God. I don't remember, something like that. He was basically the retired Godfather. You know, I see Godfather for inspiration. Who was sort of the brains over the brains. That was it. Of the operation. I played, I forgot what I named my character, Princess Rhododendron, also known as Rhodey, who was the incompetent face grizzly bear. So theoretically, I'd be the one who, I think you're, like, the face is the character, the one who does the talking, right? You know, the charisma character in the D&D campaign. Although for some reason I rolled incredibly poorly on the clothes, so my human-like passing score, whatever, was 7. I would like to point out my friends, I think, averaged, like, one had 19, one had 14, one had 16, and another one had 19. So I did not pass for a human very well. Everyone thought I was a bear, but I looked cute as heck. Anyway, so Rhodey was basically like a social media star, kind of. I played her as the daughter of Godfather, who, someone who's spoiled rotten. Like, that's why she's incompetent. Like, that's why I did it as incompetent. Explain my own character decisions. Of course, I've got to make up a full character from a comedy-based game from like 3 words or whatever. But I was like, incompetent from just being useless sounds really boring. Let's do incompetent as in she's so spoiled she doesn't understand how most things really work. She's incompetent because she's been pampered essentially her entire life. So she was like a social media star, is like how I played her, like someone who's initially I sort of like intended for her to be like someone who is like a fake social media star. Like, she thinks she's like the biggest thing in the entire world, but really like no one knows who the heck she is. But then like some of the roles as they went early just ended up making her actually genuinely quite popular or like known or something like that, which I think is a funny sort of twist of fate, and incompetent at trying to be incompetent in that sense. But yeah, I can describe what she looks like. She had like a royal shirt on. She had theoretically a peach velour knee-length skirt, which I took as like, okay, let's make this a Princess Peach skirt. Then I gave her a crown because I was like, she looks like a princess at this point. We might as well like go lean in. I can't remember what voice I gave her. Like a sort of like slightly southern, sort of like pageant queen voice. Like I was really channeling. This is such a specific reference, but very important people. I can't remember her name, but the person that Izzy Rowland plays. I'd be like, I don't even know what you're talking about, is what I was saying. But like the catchphrase, I suppose, I was like, what is going on here? Who else did we have? So obviously that was my character. That's why I spoke about them so much, because I remember them. We had Pongo, right? Washed up polar bear. Pongo, who is the thief of our group, who is a rather posh, but also who, kind of like, what would I call it? Like a wooby? Is that what they're called with TV trope? Like a sort of like something a character you sort of like feel sympathy for because everyone just sort of rags on them for really no reason. Pongo McDillinger, apparently, and who had an ex-business partner called Slick Steve, who was a sun bear, who was, I don't remember what role, the muscle. And I can't remember the exact law or something. It was like they used to be partners together in the fishing business or something, and then was it like Slick Steve betrayed Pongo or something, and then I don't know, they had been like fierce rivals ever since, and they want like each other's businesses to fail, or maybe it was like one-sided, like Slick Steve wanted Pongo to basically like die or something. I can't remember. Very much felt like it was motivated by the person necessarily, but the character motivations aligned in the end, so who knows. It's quite funny. And the entire thing is just hijinks after hijinks. Like, I don't even remember the vague premise, but in my mind I was like, okay, this is like a comedian thing, like obviously I'm gonna like yes and anything anyone says, and if needed I'll be like that sparkle chaotic energy. Didn't need to do that. Obviously I should not underestimate my friends of how chaotic they are. If anything, I played more of a straight man role, just to sort of be like, okay, let's make sure we ground things so things are funnier when they're taken to absurdity again. If you don't know, that's the whole point of a comedy DO. But my friends are just unhinged, as it turns out. So I mean, I think it was actually quite funny because she seems like she was meant to be a joke character, but then she was like actually surprisingly reasonable as far as the comedy things go. She was actually still a little bit unreasonable. She was very self-obsessed at the end. But it was just silly. Like, I'm trying to remember. It was Honeycon was set in Central Park in New York or something, right? And for some reason, what we needed to do was disable the security, which basically ended up in us being like a flashback of going into, I think, Trump Tower. I suppose highly relevant at this point, with Taylor Swift endorsing Kamala. Thumbs up to that. But there was the debate as well, which I haven't watched because obviously I'm not from the US. I'm not that interested in the exact US politics, but apparently it was interesting, shall we say, to quote Two Step Violin. Anyway, not to get political here because we don't really talk about politics much on this. Yeah, but like we were getting Trump Tower because that's where the security was being held or something. I'm trying to remember what happened. Like Pongo set a fire, which to make most people evacuate from the tower to get in, and we were just like already off to an absolutely blazing start. This is ridiculous. And then I can't remember. They ended up going like through the water pipes or something with the toilets to make it up there, and they only made it up there because of like the godfather making a business deal and getting like hired or something, such that they needed to accommodate their sewage system to accommodate for large movements, shall we say. And then they went to the security room, which every single background was my character, Princess Rhodey's face, because I can't even remember why we needed that to happen, but it happened. Basically, we were going like Inceptioning. We were going like layer upon layer upon layer up of like flashbacks to try and like bail us out of every situation, because the dice were not in our favor. Honey Heist is interesting, where actually low rolls are what you want. For, I don't know, for some reason, and you only roll d6s, and sometimes you can roll with advantage. If you do something which fits, is it either your characteristic or your role, or your speciality, because each of the bears has a different speciality. I can't remember what, the grizzly bear, I think a grizzly bear one could identify honey or something. No, a grizzly bear could terrify people, that was it. Which I think I only did like once or twice or something. But we did that to just take out security, because actually what we're doing is Princess Rhodey was meant to be performing there on the stage, and the Queen Bee was kept in a safe hanging above the stage or something like that. And then she got taught to breakdance by Raygun, who is that breakdancer from Australia, if you don't know, the one who's been memed to oblivion and back. And then like during the dress rehearsal while she was breakdancing, they got the bees out, and then it turns out the twist in our one was that the bees were super angry. The only thing I remember is I provoked the bees even more to get them to chase me and then run around. We set off a blimp to be like a distraction, I think, and then we got away in like a honey van lorry with like a big tub of honey on the back or something. I don't know. It was insane. It honestly didn't make any sense, whatever we were doing. But yeah, I mean, that's the entire premise of it, is just to be weird, be silly, have fun, and do stupid stuff. But yeah, Honey Heist, what can I say? It was a fun time. The BM did a fantastic job for what honestly was an incredibly chaotic campaign. You know, certainly, like I say often, my sessions are quite campaign, but you know, I often have a lot less where I had to sort of roll with the punches with. I had to improv things, but I have a general structure which I, you know, created myself, so I know exactly how things are going to work. I know the character motivations, so that sort of thing. They're predictable, and people are trying to be silly with a sort of hint of chaos in it. This one, like, everyone's obviously off the rails. Everyone's like, let's try and do the stupidest thing possible. Let's be ridiculous. But it was a lot of fun. We rolled an unbelievable amount of, by the way, of double sixes, which is basically the equivalent of like, well, not quite the probabilistic equivalent, but the feeling equivalent of double natural ones in D&D, like rolling with advantage. Basically, 6 is the worst possible outcome you can roll on dice, and when you roll with advantage, you roll 2 dice and you take a lowest value. And I think we had 4 double sixes within our campaign. It was crazy. There's so many times where like, oh, flashback, we do this, and we describe something's really cool, we roll the dice, and it's like, it fails, and we're like, no. Anyway, it was a grand old time. I think everyone basically had like an absolutely lovely time doing it. It was so silly, it was so ridiculous. And yeah, it's certainly nice, I think, to have, at least from my perspective, something which feels quite different from the D&D campaign. The D&D campaign isn't like super serious or anything like that. I think I described it on the level of like Marvel, where Marvel tends to be like, have a light comedic tone, but also can do some serious stuff here and there depending on the story told. So what I think I described it as, it has a serious foundation, but you are allowed to be silly on top of that foundation, essentially. This one is obviously just sort of silly from the get-go. If anything, it was just kind of like improv comedy, which, you know, sketch comedy. And I love doing that. Like every time we do ARAMs, I just like start a random bit going. I'm just like, I don't care if no one joins me on this bit. I'm keeping it through all the way to the end. And it's just silly. It's ridiculous. This is basically that, but distilled down into a D&D campaign. And we're all bears. I'm trying to think of other like major funny things which happened. The thing is, obviously I'm biased because I can remember the things that I did better than I can remember what other people did. I remember Pongo developed like a mechanical fish which somehow could do everything. It was both like an extended range grabber. I think it picked locks or something. I remember that our muscle like failed to basically use our muscle powers on literally everything. Every single roll they tried to do to like brute force something didn't work, which was incredible. We spent so long in Trump Tower, which is insanity, I would say. And yeah, I don't know. Do we play the rules exactly how they should have been done? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. I think Honey Heist very much seems to me, and from a player perspective, I haven't of course looked much in from a BM perspective. It very much feels like Rule of Cool, the game. The rules are there just as a structure. It's much more better to tell a funny story, an engaging story, something which your players will remember. And remember it, we did. So yeah, Honey Heist. What a fun time. What a silly time. If you don't know much about tabletop roleplay, but you want a comedic experience, give it a shot. It's simple to pick up, and it's funny. Anyway, on that note, I'm going to round this episode off here. So thank you once again to VBM for doing a fantastic job, and the players as well for also having a great time and facilitating such silly randomness. Anyway, if you have been watching, thank you very much. Been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope we see each other again, but for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye bye for now.